I heard part of the tail end of the discussion we were having just before, something that was said, and I think it was Max who said that it has to be an equitable and balanced approach. And another thing you all talked about is pushing back, continue to push back. We do need to also, and the comment was made about recognizing that we have a governor who is providing something that we would not have had before. And we continue to push back. Same thing with the legislators, continue to push back. But every once in a while, we need a little bit of love to let us know that we've been doing some good stuff too. So I do recommend that. I want to thank you for inviting me to speak here today. I understand this is your 12th grade water cooler convening series. As was mentioned earlier, during my time in office, childcare has been one of my top priorities. Ensuring that families and providers have the support they need has been a key focus of mine throughout this pandemic. Before, without a doubt, but during the pandemic, even more so. And that's why I did introduce, and it was commented on earlier, AB 92, which will waive family fees for subsidized childcare through at least October of 2022. And we're using federal relief funding for this. AB 92 will also bring together parents, providers, childcare experts, and other stakeholders to develop an equitable sliding scale for family fees that better reflects family budgets. This work group that the bill establishes is going to get our stakeholders to come to the table and have the conversation with the administration, something that is so necessary. It's also going to lay the groundwork for long-term change in our state's child care system. And as was mentioned earlier, we have to get the right people at the table. If we're not listening to those who are providing services, then it's an incomplete discussion. We all know that recently the Biden administration proposed additional federal funding for childcare, up to $4 billion to improve care and conditions for California's children, our families, and our providers. After a long struggle with the nationwide pandemic, families need and deserve relief through this time. In light of this once in a lifetime influx of federal funding, we have the opportunity to, as President Biden says, build back better. And specifically with regard to our childcare system, to create a childcare system that equitably serves all Californians, and especially our communities of color. I'm excited to be part of this effort through AB 92, which I believe is going to bring relief to families struggling to afford care for their children during the pandemic and beyond. And the truth is that while I am encouraged by this progress, there is so much more work that needs to be done. I'm grateful to my colleagues. I'm not the only one, as you all know. I'm one of many. I have lots of colleagues who are committed to a more equitable, more inclusive childcare system. A lot of my colleagues are working on bills that revise childcare rate structure, that address the quality of care, tackle the inherent disparities in access to early learning for children of color, and so many other areas. The Women's Caucus also has stated emphatically for years since I've been here that this is a top priority. These are all critical goals, and the legislature continues to work on these to achieve more and more, especially this year. Now, recently, Governor Newsom also released, as we all have been talking about, he released the May revise and provided updates to the budget proposals he had shared back in January. This budget marks monumental investments in California's education system. And I think for that, as we talked about earlier, that we have to recognize exactly what we're being provided here. These include his proposals on extended and expanded learning, universal school meals, community schools, as was discussed earlier, and funding for educator effectiveness. Again, while I'm encouraged by this year's May revise, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done regarding the proposals related to childcare. It's my hope that California will advance a mixed delivery childcare system in accordance with the Biden plan, and the childcare providers, I want to be sure, are not going to have to compete against transitional kindergarten. This is a discussion I have had with our chair of Sub 2. I am a joint author of his pre-K or TK bill, but I've made it clear that we have to be sure to protect the very workers, the very providers who were those frontline workers who put their life and their family's life and health on the line during this pandemic to take care of the children. I think that we need a budget plan where our TK and our childcare systems work together to complement each other. And that has been my discussion since we finally realized there's money. And we have to make sure that we push not so much for taking away from one to give to another, but to make sure we expand all of this so that there is enough money that covers all of the needs of all of California's children. Over the course of the pandemic, our childcare providers, as I mentioned, they put their lives on the line. They risked their lives to care for California's children so that families could keep working and our economy could continue running. Our providers deserve to be recognized and they deserve to be compensated in accordance with the essential services they provide. We can't just call them heroes when they're putting their life on the line, and then when everything is getting better, we then set them aside. They're heroes then, they're still heroes now, and we've got to protect them. That's why the work that groups like Advancement Project do is so important. Your advocacy keeps legislators on our toes and helps us to understand the most pressing needs of our communities and how the policies we develop affect all of you and all of our children and our families. I want you to please continue to reach out to us, to me, to my staff, to my colleagues. Use your voice to educate the legislature on how we can best help children, our families, the providers, especially during these challenging times. Again, I want to thank you for inviting me to be here. I see that the governor's team is also represented here. I've worked with so many of you, and I look forward to continuing our work together for our children, our families, and our providers. Thank you so very much.